Spinoza and Gurdjieff's views of Christian beliefs of Easter and the resurrection. Today is Friday. It's supposed to be Good Friday. What does that mean? And what does Easter and the resurrection, what do they mean? This weekend, which is April 15th, 16th, and 17th, are special days that over 2.8 million Christians celebrate the death of Jesus and his resurrection. So Good Friday implies that we should honor Jesus and his death. He was crucified, and it was believed that he died for our sins. And on Sunday, which is Easter, is the idea of resurrection. What do they mean? What do they represent? Spinoza and Gurdjieff sees this as a symbol or symbology of some ideas, not to be taken literally. Unfortunately, there are over 2.8 billion people who believe in Jesus, the idea of Jesus' death, of his dying on the cross for our sins. What is sin? To Spinoza, sin means anything that prevents the mind from understanding. And Jesus was called the Son of God. What does that mean? Well, again, Spinoza saw this, the Son of God, as the understanding. The Son means understanding. The Son of is something of something else. So God, Spinoza's God, is an infinite being comprised of infinite attributes. And each attribute expresses this being's infinite nature. We are part of two. The infinite attribute called extension, which is the physical universe, and the attribute thought, which expresses the infinite understanding. So without these attributes, human nature and all existence would not exist. So our body is an expression, is a modification of the attribute called attribute of extension, which expresses the infinite material existence. And the attribute thought is our mind. The mind is the idea of the body. The mind comprises of ideas, and some ideas are clear and others are confused. The ideas in the mind that are clear represent the idea of God's nature. God constitutes the essence of our mind. Again, God constitutes the essence of our mind. That is when the mind is active. The passive part is basically the part that relies on memory. It believes in free will. It's comprised in confusions. The idea that we believe when someone is doing an act that we disapprove of, they are doing it purposely, not really understanding the individual's nature and why they are doing what they're doing. Everybody follows from laws, the law of self-preservation and the law of necessity. And these two laws, there are others, but these two laws direct man's existence, stimulates his or her desires, and express emotions. An emotion only implies that our thinking is confused. Anger, hate, pain, and desires. When our desires are not met, we want something, we feel, we meet someone at a grocery store, at a coffee shop, or for dinner, and they don't show up, you will automatically go into pain, hate, and anger. Without thinking. Is that free will? Absolutely not. However, let's go back to the idea of resurrection. Again, what is the symbolic nature of this thing called resurrection or idea? It's a word, but people believe in the word more of an image. They do not understand the idea of it. resurrection implies rising again. And they believe that Jesus rose from his dead body and resurrected and became whole again. And he ascended into heaven. Again, this is all magical, symbolic thinking, has no reality. And yet, over 2.8 billion people believe it. And this is unfortunate because when we have belief without understanding, it's a passive state, it's a sleep state. Gurdjieff talks about man is asleep. If you have the book called In Search of the Miraculous, on page 65, 66, and 67, he explains very clearly that man has knowledge and has a being. He says knowledge and being, if they're separate, if you can acquire a lot of knowledge without being, your knowledge is abstract. That means that you cannot operate and use that knowledge. You can read all the literature, all the good books. You can read the Bible. And yet, at times that you're in church and you read the Bible, you feel good. But the minute you walk out, and you find your car has been broken into, you're going to feel pain, hate, and anger automatically. Why? Because we are human beings comprised of emotions that can be understood, and when they're understood, our mind is stimulated to think clearly. When the mind is stimulated to think rationally and understand the laws of nature, the law of self-preservation, the law of necessity, the law of inertia, the law of cause and effect, and the law of following the path of least resistance. These laws help us understand what influences human nature. When we learn how to look at ourselves through the method and process of factualizing, meaning journal the issue. What is your desire? When your desires was checked or dismissed, what are the emotions that were triggered? Hate, pain, and anger. As you begin to understand your emotions, this stimulates the mind. And this mind is the active thinking part of the mind. You are able to come to clarity and understanding. This is the true resurrection. What do I mean by that? Is that you go from an automatic, robotic, biological nature, again, a robotic, biological nature, to an active, thinking intelligence. Man is comprised, say, of 5 senses. And those senses, smell, touch, taste, sight, and sound, 5 senses, help man preserve his and her existence. All animals live by these 5 senses, and yet man has other attributes called intuition and reason. So mankind is able to apply reason to a degree and also intuition. And so they're able to have some kind of success in life, be a businessman, be a Republican or a Democrat, be president, be a scientist, an attorney, a hairstylist, a construction worker, have a lot of clarity in what they do. But this is not a conscious state. Well, I'll take that back. It's the first level of consciousness. We only see the surface of things. A deeper idea or deeper state of consciousness when we begin to understand the cause and effects of things. Again, there's a superficial level, which we see external to ourselves, but there is an internal reality that we see inside our nature. What does that mean? That we're able to observe. Self-observation is a very important part of our growth. And this is where Gurdjieff is so important. The book, I only have one book that I work with. I have currently 9 students. And I've had more and I've had less. And I'm continually looking for students because there are those out there who want to live a purposeful and meaningful life, dissatisfied with where you are, even though you might be very successful in life. But life has not given you the happiness that you seek or the fulfillment that you may seek. I found that Spinoza has given me great fulfillment, great purpose, and I want to share these ideas with you. I wrote a book called The Way of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. It's a case studies of students who've gone through this work and who've come to new realities about their nature. What about the new realities? Having more power, more control, a sense of self, becoming a master of oneself, a master of their emotions. Gurdjieff talks about becoming a master of oneself. However, he doesn't explain really how. And that's why Spinoza and Spinoza's Ethics, what a book. You can find this book on Amazon.com, a used book. Very inexpensive, but so much information. How to come to a new character, an active character which can understand oneself, as Socrates said, what's the most important knowledge to ever know is to know thyself. But what is there to know? Our emotions can lead us to freedom, to improve our understanding. So once we improve and activate our mind to see that we have this understanding that is constantly improving, and I've been doing this work for over 50 years. And you can see that I'm passionate and excited about this knowledge. It is not hearsay, which is the first level and the lowest level of knowledge. It's called hearsay and experience. And this is what we learned since infancy. All the information that you acquired since infancy, you learn by the environment you grew up in. Your parents, the schools, the television, the internet are become your teachers. And you absorb information and you act from that information. But that information is not clear. It's very confused. So the first level of knowledge is called hearsay and experience. The second and third level of knowledge, the second level of knowledge is reason. Reason helps us see how things are put together. And this is where mathematics and science are able to do some wonderful things in the electronic and mechanical areas. These great computers that we have, being on the internet, traveling to Mars, having these beautiful jets, but yet man has not changed, even though he's made great progress in the area of mechanics and electronics. What has not improved? Knowing himself. He still is asleep, as Gurdjieff would say. Being asleep means he's not aware of his intelligence. So once we begin to rise and come to our intelligence, this is the true resurrection. Again, Christians believe this man, Jesus, is a man just like you and I. He represents mankind, the capacity of coming to true knowledge, to become one with himself and one with God. And what is God? Well, Einstein said, my God is the God of Spinoza. What did he mean? Why did he say that? Well, he was pressured by a rabbi who confronted him and said, Einstein, we know you're famous. You've done great things for humanity, but I don't see you at the temple, and you're a Jew. What's wrong? Don't you believe in God? And Einstein replied, my God is the God of Spinoza. I have learned Spinoza's God. I follow Spinoza. I understand his ideas. I'd like to share them with you, because then you would come to what Jesus came to, a true resurrection of coming to his true and your own intelligence. Her intelligence. The mind is capable of coming to clarity and truth. through the powers of reason and intuition. Thanks for listening.